Hi guys, on today's video I'm going to show you how I did this photo in Lightroom and in the basement. Okay, so let's just dive right into Lightroom and we'll show you how I did this. Thing is though, I'm not going to show you guys how to import stuff into Lightroom. There's tons of videos out there and tutorials on how to get started in Lightroom. This is just going to be basically how I do my photos, and especially that kitten one. And alright, so now that we're in Lightroom, what we're going to do is we are going to take the original photo, which is this one here, and we know it's an original because if you hit I on Lightroom, you know it's an NEF, which is a raw file. It's a pretty big file, comes straight out of the camera. This is what it looked like. Now the first thing that I like to do is I like to go in and take a look at the composition. Everything looks good. I'm probably going to convert this down to a 10 by 8 or an 8 by 10 just so I can get it ready for print and probably put it onto the wall. Okay, so the first thing I do is I go into my lens correction and I edit my profile here because it is the 50mm the f2.8 Nikon lens. Let's push I, get rid of the information on the screen, and there we go. I don't know if it really did much there, but I might have missed it. Then I remove the chromatic aberration and I take a look at this photo. Let's close that off there. Alright, so bringing up to basic, everything's the way it is, nothing's moved, there's no sliders moved or anything like that. But prior to touching anything on the photo, I like to go into my my crop page, or the crop tab there, and switch it from the aspect to an 8 by 10, just because I like to get it, like I said, I like to get it ready for hanging on the wall, stuff like that. So basically, you know, following the rule, I can't even talk, following the rule of thirds, I like to set the cat maybe a little bit to the left there, just keep it off center, and hit done, and that'll just bring up an 8 by 10 ready to go, ready to print photo. Now, going into the basic tab, we check out our histogram up here. Everything looks okay. It's a little bit bright, but that's okay. Now let's check out the shadows. First of all, what I like to do is say first of all twice, but then bring down the shadows, and bring down the highlights, and then raise the shadows all the way up. Bring out all the detail there. We like to white balance this. We move the slider around on the white balance, and if you watch a histogram on the top there, you'll see it'll slide over. Once it goes into that top right corner, and that little red, or that little blue arrow lights up, that means you're starting to clip. Now, there's another way of doing this. And the way I do it easily is I hold on to the Alt key and then push the slider over until things start pumping through. If you go too high, that's way too high. That's going to burn everything out, and you're going to lose all your detail and your highlights. So I bring it down just to there. I just like that, just so a little bit peeks through, just so that I know that I'm not over clipping. Same thing with the black. I hold my Alt key down and go the other way until black starts showing up through. And what will happen is, if you go over the arrows, you'll see where, like if you take a look at that, it goes from black to a little bit of blue. That means that's all burnt out, or it's too black. There's no detail in there, which is fine. It's just the eye, right? And same thing with the whites. There's nothing really burning through, which is good. Let me see what's next. Okay, so after that, I like to go back in and click it once on the screen and then see what's going on here, because this was shot at ISO 2000, I believe. Yeah, it's pretty dark in the room at the time. I got a little bit of light there, but I had to bring up the ISO a bit. So that introduced a lot of noise. Now, noise is all this grainy stuff in here inside the eye here, and the rest of the photo, you can see it all over here. Now, if we go into noise reduction. We're going to bring this down, go into detail, drop down to noise reduction, and then start playing with this slider. On a high ISO like 2000, I like to start right in the middle. It's about around 50%, around 50, until you can see it's pretty much removed all the noise. However, it did blur the picture a little bit, because that's what happens when you reduce the noise. When you get rid of the noise, you introduce a lot of blur. So bring it back down a little bit. A little bit of noise ain't gonna kill nobody. Alright, I'll leave the sharpening for now. Now I also notice on this picture that around the eyes we've got the reflection from the window where the cat was playing around on the ground here, and in order to remove this, we've got to jump back into go back into lens correction, and then go into manual and click on this little eyedropper here for defringing. Now what happens is that removes the chromatic aberration that it couldn't do on its own, so you got to do manual. And you just go into the blue, you try to remove that. You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You click on that blue, it'll remove a lot of it for you, and anything that's close. So once that's done, I mean, it's hard to tell on a YouTube video here how much it's done, but it actually has done it quite a bit. So I'm going to bring it back, and that's that for lens correction. Zoom it back out. Now, she looks pretty good. However, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. See, I like to use an external, I want to call a plugin for Lightroom. Now I'm going to leave some links in the description down below on where to find, you know, this particular plugin. And this one is from, if we bring it in here, this one, oh no, that's my presets, wrong spot. We're going into the plugins here. We're going to right click on here, and we're going to go into Perfect Effects 9. Now before we do that, I'm just going to make sure everything's okay before we jump into Perfect Effects 9. Yeah, I really didn't forget anything, so that's basically my setup before I jump into Perfect Effects 9. Okay, now that we've brought this into Perfect Effects 9, I use 9 instead of 10 because I find that 9 is a little bit more stable. So anyway, we're inside Perfect Effects 9, and this is where a lot of magic happens. See, I like to use this plugin because I really don't have a lot of time to mess around with all the photos that I've taken. I do photography on the side as a part-time job right now, alongside my other full-time job, which I don't want to talk about. But anyway, so if I was to fool around with every single raw file, I would be there forever, especially when I'm doing real estate. But anyway, let's go back into this one here. We're going to take this photo and we're going to go into, there's a whole bunch of filters here from Perfect Effects 9. Actually, I got this one free, this full program, from a magazine. I think it was one of the digital photo magazines out there. Anyway, so I plugged it in, and then we're going to go into what we like to call HDR look. Now, HDR, some people say HDR is a little bit overdone. However, if you can use HDR looks on some pictures, then it just looks fantastic. For example, I'm going to jump in here and take a look at this picture here. Then we're going to jump into the surreal, and look at that. It just brought everything out. Now, however, what happens there when you bring out all that detail, you're introducing a lot of noise, especially around the outside here where all the blur happens on the bokeh. Now, what I like to do here, from this moment on, I go into the masking tool, you know, hitting the big bracket, or sorry, the right bracket, bring down the feather a little bit, and I like to go around and get rid of a little bit of that noise, and get rid of the actual, what I'm doing right now is I'm masking out the actual HDR look in the photo, so I don't have it anymore. I'll go around, do a little bit of details here. I'll go around the cat here. Now, if you look at the mask, on the right hand side here under HDR look, you can see all the white is what you can see from the HDR look. All the black is me removing it. So I'm going to keep going, get rid of all this noise down here and all this HDR here. Fall along carefully along that pillow. Oh, when I took this photo, I couldn't believe how mischievous she was being. She was hiding around. She was playing around. This is a great cat, by the way. Her name is Tiana. So anyway, I digress. This is where we're going to get rid of some noise here. Now, like the reason I'm removing this, because the whole emphasis of this picture is on this cat, on the eyes here. You know, and as long as, make sure that you have your subject's eyes in focus. That's the number one most important thing to do. So I've had the eyes in focus. The rest of it is purposely blurred because of this lens. Now, getting rid of all that noise there. Everything looks pretty good. I left her there. We take a look here on the right hand side, and the mask looks pretty good. So we hit apply, and I'll jump right back into Lightroom, and that's what we're going to do. So after Perfect Effects 9, it's brought us back into Lightroom. I mean, there's not a huge difference, but you can see now that the file is actually in edit, and we are going to take a look at this photo and zoom in. Click once, and for some reason Perfect Effects brings in a little bit of noise, so going back down to the noise, let's go back into detail, reduce the noise a little bit. That introduces a little bit of blur, but just fine, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going back in and I'm going to sharpen. Now the only thing is you have to be careful you don't over sharpen, because what happens when you go too much, you introduce sharpening noise, which is kind of like little squiggly wrigglies everywhere. I know that sounded funny, but that's what you end up bringing in here. So what you got to do is you have to be careful about how much you sharpen a photo. Now, that looks good. Everything else looks alright. Go back into the detail. Your histogram showing fine. You know, I can bring down the highlights a little bit more. Maybe increase the shadows just a little bit. Okay, she looks pretty good. Now this is where the magic of presets come in. Now there's a ton of presets for free for Lightroom online. I'm going to leave some in the description below. But what we're going to do is I'm going to go into one particular one that I like using, which is sitting under the Photo Traces free collection. Like, look at all of these. Look at all these presets that Lightroom comes with. You know, obviously the Lightroom presets, and it comes with some. No, that's it. It comes with all the Lightroom one. Look at all the free presets, minus my own user presets. These are all free online. You just gotta do a little research, and you'll be able to find them. Anyway, going into my presets that I enjoy, I like going into. We are going to go in style. I really like this preset. It's nice. And when you do go into presets, you can see all kinds of different things that are gonna happen to your photo. But anyway, we're gonna stick with in style here, which is nice. It's all. I mean, this photo is almost done. I mean, there's not really much more. I might take this photo here, bring up a little bit of saturation, bring in those yellows. Oh, there we go. That's nice. Bring in those yellows. Maybe I'll take a look at her eyes here, and we'll jump into the Lightroom brushes here. We'll jump into Iris Enhance, and I'm going to zoom it into 1:1. Hold space bar down, move the photo, and now what we're going to do is that preset introduced a little bit of sharpening noise, but now look at this. We are going around the iris, and we are going to enhance it. I mean, it looks a little bit overdone here on when you're this close at 1:1, but however, once you zoom right back out of there, that's done. Once you zoom out, it looks great. Now, what you can do here is, if you think there's too much yellow there, you can bring down your saturation and altogether. However, you can go into HSL here in your saturation just on your yellows and bring it down. Or if you're not too sure if that's just pure yellow here, if there's a little bit of orange, which there is, click on this button here and bring it over here, and it actually is orange. So bring it down just a little bit. You can go all the way to black and white if you want, but go back up to where it was and bring it down slightly. There we go. And she looks pretty good. And that's basically how I do some editing. I'm not going to show you how I do my real estate editing right now, but I will show you guys this one, and this one's done. You know, I'm not going to show you how to export and all that stuff. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of tutorials on YouTube and on the internet on how to do, you know, basic stuff with Lightroom. So other than that, this photo seems to be done, and that's it. That's my tutorial today on how to do that picture in Lightroom. Well, there you go, guys. That's how I edited that photo in Lightroom. If you liked the video, click the like button down below. If you want, share the video, and don't forget to subscribe. If you have any other comments or questions on how to do anything in Lightroom or Photoshop, feel free to leave a comment down below. You guys have a wonderful night. Thank you. Bye-bye now.